nothing about you feels like obsessed with my job. Everything about you feels like snake oil salesman. Stephanie White talked to Renee Montgomery because that's all this organization does. They like talking to people, platforming people, going on platforms of people who just trash this fan base, who just trash this team. That's what this Indiana Fever franchise does best. So she goes on, she talks to Renee Montgomery. They not like us. They not like us. And she says, oh, well, teams are expecting the pick and roll. We got to change. We can't do the same thing over and over again. I mean, y'all have only done 13 games together last year, so you don't really establish anything. And then we have Stephanie White's introductory press conference. Oh, Stockton and Malone, the pick and roll game. Oh, we have the two best. Let's get right into it, shall we? I can't take this lady anymore. She's past Christy Sides territory. She's in a world of her own.
Something is seriously wrong inside the Indiana Fever organization, and the evidence is no longer something you can dismiss or debate. What began as quiet frustration among the fan base has now exploded into full public accountability, because the narrative Stephanie White has been selling about how she manages Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston has been completely torn apart by the actual footage, the actual quotes, and the actual decisions made on that court. This is not a case of fans overreacting. This is not a story being blown out of proportion by people who do not understand basketball. This is a coaching staff that got caught saying one thing and doing something entirely different, and the gap between those two things is so wide and so specific that no amount of careful press conference language is going to close it. People have gone back through every game, every interview, every post-game statement. They have lined up what this coaching staff said against what this coaching staff did, and what they found does not just raise questions, it answers them. The answers are not flattering. The body language at the podium tells the same story. The tape does. The non-answers, the deflections, the vague responses about player development and offensive philosophy. All of it is the sound of an organization that knows it has been exposed and is now trying to manage the damage without admitting what caused it. When your franchise player is Caitlin Clark, you do not get to operate in the shadows. Every decision gets examined. Every word gets archived. Every lineup choice gets cross-referenced against everything you said the week before. The fan base that has been locked in on this team since the moment Clark was drafted is not casual. They are obsessive in the best possible way, and they have been building a file on this coaching staff for months. That file is now open, and what is inside it is going to be very difficult for Stephanie White and her staff to walk back. The inconsistencies are not random. They form a pattern, and patterns tell a story that isolated moments never could. This organization is now being held accountable not for one mistake, but for a sustained series of decisions that contradict everything they claim to believe. The comment section has connected every dot, and the picture those dots form is one this coaching staff never wanted the public to see. So here is exactly what was said, exactly what happened instead, and exactly why the people watching this team are not going to quiet down anytime soon. This story has layers, and every layer makes the situation worse for the people in charge of this roster. What has fans completely unraveling right now is not a rumor. It is not speculation. It is a direct statement made on camera by Stephanie White herself, and it is one of the most stunning things a head coach has said out loud in recent memory.
White prepared for it, so we aren't going to run it when it was clear as day that no team has an answer for the ABCC two-man game.
To that point, I've watched a lot of Aliyah Boston and Unrivaled even coming into this, and she is such a powerhouse that I think, like, I know she's going to be happy to have Caitlin back because that was one of the high targets in the league of that two-man game. So what does that look like now? Even Raven moving Caitlin off the ball, having a two-man game with Aliyah Boston, like, you have a lot of weapons, and people sometimes don't realize, like, that's when, like, the coaches now, it's your job to mesh that whole thing together and make it work.
Yeah, I think creating space for C and AB to do what they do in the two-man game, you probably aren't going to see it necessarily on the first side of the floor anymore. Everybody's game plan is ready for that. I think playing through AB as a...
What the hell did you just say? What did you just say? You were probably never going to see it again?
You probably aren't going to see it necessarily on the first side of the floor anymore. Everybody's game plan is ready for that. I think playing through AB as a hub and inverting some of those actions. I mean, she showed last year that she can be a point forward, so to speak. I mean, she handled a lot of our ball handling duties with Caitlin off the floor. We want to play through her. We want those two to be able to play off of one another, but we also got to create space for Kelsey Mitchell. I mean, Kelsey Mitchell is an elite guard who can get her shot off at any time, who can get downhill, who can create matchup problems, who can create rotations to allow Aliyah and Caitlin's job to be.
Yo, can somebody send this woman a drug test, please? I'm actually impressed we didn't hear a lot of ums over there. This must be early morning before she got her fix in. Can somebody send this woman a drug test, please? Folks, I know we say this. She might think that Kelsey Mitchell's the best player on this team. She thinks that Aliyah Boss is the second best player on this team. Let's not get it misconstrued here. She thinks Kelsey's number 1, AB's number 2, and CC's number 3. This woman is on drugs.
White essentially confirmed in her own words that the most devastating two-player action in the entire WNBA, a combination that has left opposing defenses scrambling and coaching staffs losing sleep, is something she is intentionally walking away from. Not because the players executing it are struggling, not because injuries have forced a change, not because some brilliant tactical evolution demands a pivot, but because she believes other teams have watched enough film on it that running it consistently is no longer worth the effort. Read that back one more time and let it sink in fully. You have arguably the most unguardable pick and roll partnership in women's basketball sitting right there on your roster, a pairing that functions as a genuine nightmare for any defense that tries to contain it, and your response as the head coach is to voluntarily shelve it because the opponent has done their homework. That is not strategy, that is surrender dressed up in coaching language. Every basketball mind watching that press conference felt the same thing at the same time. Disbelief followed immediately by fury. The internet did not just react to this, it erupted, because White did not bury this comment in some obscure film session or private conversation. She said it publicly, plainly, with cameras rolling, and every single person watching understood immediately what it meant for how Caitlin Clark is going to be used going forward. This was not a slip of the tongue. This was a window directly into the philosophy driving this offense, and what fans saw through that window disturbed them deeply.
They're expecting it if they can't stop it. Exactly. She keeps playing defense against her team for the opponent. What the fuck? They would stop doing something that they couldn't stop before. Best pick and roll in the league. Is she really this stupid? She thinks she's so smart. She's an idiot. She is an idiot. Stephanie White, you've lost the plot. You can't see the forest from the trees. You're just too dumb. Seriously. It's the only way I can put it. But you're an elite ball knower. Don't worry. The shills, they'll defend you. It would be smart for Stephanie White to put Caitlin Clark off ball because she's an elite ball knower, right? Go run cover for her, please. Go put on your big girl panties and go run cover for Stephanie White. All shill media, go do that. Go do that. Not playing to your strengths is a mistake, and they lost the game. That's the result. She's been lying since day one. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they do on Wednesday. Run some pick and rolls to shut us up. But it ain't gonna be consistent. She might do it just to shut us up for a little bit, but it ain't gonna be consistent. This isn't a real coach, man. This isn't a real coach. She comes in, she looks at Austin Kelly and Brianne January and say, so what are we doing today, guys? Who's taking the lead today, guys? The lady is an absolute psycho. She's a nutcase.
The trust that had been carefully extended to this coaching staff took a serious hit in that moment, and the questions that followed were not gentle ones. The questions that pour out of that admission are ones that no honest answer can make. Comfortable. Has there ever been a successful coaching staff in the history of professional basketball that responded to defensive preparation by simply retiring their most dangerous weapon? Has any championship-level offensive mind ever looked at a play that opposing defenses fear above all others and decided the right move was to stop running it? When a defense spends an entire week of preparation focused on containing one specific action, does that mean the action has lost its value? Or does it mean that action is creating so much pressure that it is opening up advantages everywhere? Else on the floor, every single person who has watched elite basketball at any level knows the answer. When something works so well that it demands full defensive attention, you do not walk away from it, you sharpen it, you layer new wrinkles. On top of it, you use the threat of it to manipulate rotations and manufacture open looks for everyone else on the roster. You build your entire offensive identity around the fact that nobody has figured out how to stop it. Abandoning it does not neutralize the preparation opposing teams have invested. It simply delivers them the outcome they were working toward without making them earn a single possession. It is the equivalent of folding a winning hand because you are worried the other player might be getting reads on your tells. And this is where the frustration transforms into something harder and sharper than disappointment. Because what is being laid out here is not a tactical debate between people with different basketball philosophies. This is a direct and documented charge that Stephanie White is actively coaching against the greatest strengths her own roster possesses. She is choosing not to deploy the most unstoppable offensive weapon available to her. She is deliberately reducing the role of a pick and roll combination that no team in this league has shown a consistent ability to contain. And she is doing all of this not because the situation demands it, not because matchups require it, not because some deeper strategic vision justifies it, but because of a philosophical rigidity that has no logical foundation that any credible basketball mind has been able to identify or defend. The people watching this are not confused. They are not misreading the game. They are not projecting frustration onto decisions that are secretly brilliant. They are watching a coach make real-time choices that directly contradict what the talent on her roster is demanding out loud. The patience that fans extended at the beginning of this process is gone. What is left in its place is something far more serious. And this organization needs to understand that the conversation surrounding these decisions is not going to soften. It is going to get louder, sharper, and more specific with every game that passes without answers.
As raw and unfiltered as it gets.
Lying snake. And I don't give a crap what Slurp F's. I don't care. I'm sick of that crap. You cannot sit here and put all the other crap aside. You cannot sit here and tell me that this is a good basketball coach, that she's going to sit there at a press conference and talk about it being the greatest pick and roll team in the history, talk about Stockton and Malone. By the way, Renee Montgomery, who you know I've been hard on, I'm going to give her here more credit here than Stephanie White, talking about the pick and roll with AB and Caitlin Clark and putting Raven off the ball. And what does Stephanie White do? Oh, well, yeah, the pick and roll, it's nonstop. It's unstoppable even when they know it's coming. But because they know it's coming, we're going to make it easy on the other teams, do them a favor, and we're not going to run it. But hey, you know what? We're going to make AB the hub, so she'll be the point forward. Screw Caitlin Clark, and let's get the ball to Kelsey Mitchell. I can't with these people anymore. I just, like, this is so unbelievably insane to me that this woman is coaching the Indiana Fever, that this woman is coaching Caitlin Clark. You have got to be kidding me.
What makes this entire situation even more controversial is that fans do not believe this is an isolated moment anymore. In their eyes, this has slowly become a pattern that has been building over time, and every new interview or coaching decision only adds more fuel to the frustration surrounding the Indiana Fever right now. The biggest issue is not simply one comment from Stephanie White, it is the growing belief that this coaching staff may not fully understand how rare of an offensive weapon they currently have in Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston together. Because when people watch those two operate in sync, they do not see an average pick and roll combination. They see a partnership capable of completely controlling the pace of a game. Clark's ability to stretch defenses far beyond the three-point line forces defenders into impossible decisions. The moment help defenders step too high, Boston immediately becomes a problem near the rim. If defenders collapse into the paint, Clark has the passing ability to punish every mistake instantly. It creates pressure on every area of the floor at the exact same time. That is why so many fans are struggling to understand the current direction of the offense. To them, this should not be the moment where the Fever experiment with reducing those opportunities. This should be the moment where the entire system becomes even more centered around maximizing them. Instead, critics believe they are watching a coaching staff intentionally move away from the exact formula that gave this team its highest offensive ceiling. And what makes the criticism even louder is the fact that the WNBA has already shown what happens when elite guards and dominant interior players develop unstoppable chemistry together. Historically, teams spend years trying to find pairings capable of putting defenses into constant panic mode. Once organizations discover that combination, they usually spend every off-season building more counters and more spacing concepts around it. They do not voluntarily reduce its importance because opposing teams have started studying it more carefully. In fact, many fans would argue that defensive attention is proof the strategy is working perfectly. If opponents are dedicating extra practices, extra film sessions, and entire defensive game plans towards slowing one action down, that usually means you have discovered something powerful enough to shape the identity of your franchise. And that is exactly why Fever fans are becoming increasingly frustrated by the messaging coming from this coaching staff. They believe the organization should be leaning harder into Clark's playmaking strengths, not moving her away from the ball more frequently. They believe Boston should continue being utilized as a primary interior weapon in those actions instead of becoming less central to the offense. Most importantly, they believe the Fever should be forcing defenses to prove they can consistently stop this pairing over the course of an entire season before even considering moving away from it. Right now, many fans feel like those answers have not been earned yet, and this is where the criticism surrounding Stephanie White becomes especially intense because people are no longer treating this as a harmless basketball debate. They are beginning to view it as a major developmental concern for the future of the franchise itself. Caitlin Clark entered the league carrying historic expectations, enormous media attention, and the belief that she could eventually become the face of women's basketball for an entire generation. Because of that, every coaching decision involving her gets magnified immediately. Fans are not simply evaluating wins and losses anymore. They are evaluating whether this organization is truly maximizing the talent they have been given. That is why every offensive struggle now becomes part of a larger conversation. Every stagnant possession gets analyzed online. Every game where Clark spends long, stretches away from the ball, becomes another source of frustration. Every moment where the offense looks disconnected only increases the pressure surrounding the coaching staff. And the reality is that those conversations are probably not disappearing anytime soon. Because once fans begin believing a coaching staff is working against its own greatest strengths, patience disappears incredibly fast. Every future decision starts getting questioned through that same lens. Every quote gets re-examined. Every lineup adjustment becomes controversial before the game even starts. At this point, the Indiana Fever are no longer dealing with ordinary criticism. They are dealing with a fan base that believes this roster has the potential to become one of the most dangerous offensive teams in the league, and they are becoming increasingly vocal about wanting to see that potential fully unleashed instead of carefully restrained.